So things like that happen. I mean, it's you could argue that it was, maybe a poor schedule, and maybe they could schedule them on a bigger court. Yes, but again, she's so young and she's just coming through. So, and obviously the first couple rounds, the schedule is so packed. The big courts with big names, it's difficult.
Something strange is happening in tennis, and it is not coming from a racket, a ranking, or a scoreboard, but from a reaction. Because when Novak Djokovic, a man who has measured greatness in Grand Slam trophies and pressure moments, suddenly pauses to praise a 20-year-old rising star like Eala with unusual intensity, it raises a question that feels almost uncomfortable to ask out loud. What exactly is he seeing that everyone else is only beginning to notice?
Eala entered the tournament as the number 44 in the world, the 15-win, 10-loss season so far. Her best result was the Dubai quarterfinals, where she lost to Goff in the end, and her best win actually came against Goff a couple weeks later in Indian Wells, who was number 4 in the world at the time. Her worst loss was against Parks at Australian Open, who was 99 in the world at the time. Her form on the clay hasn't been great. She has lost more matches than she's won. She's had a couple of tough draws as well, losing to Ostapenko and Fernandez. So playing against a qualifier in this first round will really go a long way to get her confidence back. These two have never played before, first time meeting, so we'll see what happens here because, of course, Pavlyuchenkova has made a French Open final and Eala is looking for some form on this surface, so it'll be a really interesting time to play. If Pavlyuchenkova is going to win this one, she needs to use that confidence and experience on this surface.
This was never supposed to be about disruption. This was supposed to be another routine chapter at the Australian Open, a tournament that has perfected the illusion of control, where schedules are tight, branding is polished, and chaos is something that happens far away from the main courts.
Meeting Alex Eala for the first time was absolutely amazing because obviously she's become such a huge point of Pinoy pride, someone whom we can be proud of, whom we can watch because she's still so young and building her career. So for me, it's such a thrill meeting her in person.
Yes, and I think it's so great for young Filipinos to see such an icon on the international stage, and nakaka-excite din kasi na-inspire din sila to really get into sports and to try tennis, and malay mo.
From Miss World to tennis na raw siya.
Yet somehow, in the middle of all that precision, one name started bending reality, and Djokovic did not just acknowledge it. He leaned into it in a way that felt almost like a warning disguised as admiration.
I know it's not always easy to play against a local hero, but you managed to dig deep and also score in the moments that were very important. What do you think made the difference tonight?
No, I think I kept the intensity well throughout the match. She's a very intense player and has really good shots, so I'm really happy with the win.
And you also had a lot of fans supporting you here in Linz tonight. A lot of fans from the Philippines, but I heard they actually live in Austria. Some of them are in Vienna, some of them in Linz, in Salzburg. What did it mean to you to also have a lot of people cheering for you?
It means so much. Hello, mga kababayan.
At first glance, it sounds simple. A legend praises a young player. Tennis has always had that cycle where veterans nod approvingly at the next generation, offer polite encouragement, and move on. But this was different. Because Djokovic did not sound polite, he sounded convinced. And conviction from someone who has shared eras with Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal carries a weight that is impossible to fake. What makes it even more fascinating is that this respect did not appear out of nowhere. Players across the tour have been quietly aligning themselves behind Alex Eala in a way that feels less like casual support and more like collective recognition. They are not just cheering for her results, they are reacting to her presence, to the way crowds shift when she plays, to the energy that follows her matches because what happened during her match was not just unusual, it was borderline unmanageable. Thousands of fans converging on a court that was never designed for that level of attention. Lines stretching for hours, people standing in places that were never meant for viewing, just hoping to catch a glimpse of a player who, on paper, should not yet be commanding that kind of crowd.
Gonna win this one. She needs to get ready and move on the clay well. Now, she has played well at this tournament. She hasn't played well on clay in general in her career, but at this tournament, she has got some wins. So, if she can use that confidence at this tournament and try and move well on the clay, she might be able to get the win here. Interesting matchup here. Of course, Pavlyuchenkova coming off a long losing streak, and Eala trying to get some wins on clay. I'm going to go with Eala in 3 sets. I reckon she'll get it done in the end. She has had a couple of tough roads and a couple of tough opponents in the last few matches. So I'm going to go with her in 3. And she has the, the favorite, I guess, or the higher ranked player in this match.
And instead of distancing himself from that chaos, Djokovic validates it. He acknowledges the scheduling mistake, which in itself is rare, but then he immediately reframes the mistake as something meaningful, almost inevitable. He points out the obvious, but in a way that feels like nobody else had fully processed it yet. A country with over 100 million people finally has a tennis player they can rally behind, and the system was simply not ready for what that actually looks like in real time. That is not just a compliment. Potential is theoretical. Impact changes systems. You can feel it in the way other players talk about her, even when they are not directly asked. There is a tone of protectiveness, almost like the locker room collectively understands that what she represents is bigger than rankings or match wins. They see the crowds, they hear the noise, they understand the cultural shift that is happening right in front of them. And Djokovic, more than anyone, knows what that kind of shift looks like before it fully arrives. So when he defends Eala, it does not feel like a casual endorsement. It feels like recognition from someone who has seen this pattern before. And that is where the story becomes almost unsettling.
So I remember attending the first round of her match, which was a tough match at the US Open, and then I went back home, and then I was contemplating coming back, and I wanted to witness her win because I think she has such an amazing head on her shoulders and the game, and I think she has a voice and a platform that's gonna transcend the sport. And as we know now, sport is not just tennis; it's fashion, it's art, it's culture, it's having a platform, and I think she does brilliantly of merging all of those together.
If the chaos around her matches is not a problem, but a signal, then what happens next is not something the sport can simply manage with better scheduling. It becomes something that demands structural change. And the system, which is already struggling to contain the early signs, will have to decide whether it can adapt fast enough to keep up. What makes this even more compelling is the emotional layer that sits underneath it all. Fans are not just watching Eala, they are investing in her. They are waiting in lines for hours, standing in heat, missing out on seats, and still celebrating as if they are witnessing something historic. And instead of resisting it, they are embracing it, supporting it, and in Djokovic's case, openly defending it. Because there is an unspoken truth in all of this that nobody is directly saying, but everyone seems to feel. Tennis needs this. Not just another talented player, but a player who expands the map of the sport, who brings new audiences, new emotions, and new expectations into a system that has, at times, felt too predictable.
What are your most recent realizations about playing professionally at a very high level?
I think, especially this year, one big realization I had, I was talking to one of my coaches, and it was crazy how things changed before and after Miami, how many doors opened up, and of course all this attention and everything. And it's crazy because we were saying like everything that I'm doing is still the same. Like our routines are still the same, the people surrounding me are still the same, my tight circle. So he told me, so Alex, what's the lesson in that? And I thought about it and I said, what? And then he said, the lesson is that when you're doing bad, it's not as bad.
And that is why Djokovic's words hit differently. He is not just talking about one player. He is talking about the future. A future where the sport is louder, more chaotic, less controlled, and far more global than it has ever been before. A future where a match on a small court can feel bigger than a final, simply because of who is playing. A future where the biggest problem is not empty seats, but too many people trying to fill them. And if that future is already starting to show itself through Eala, then Djokovic's so-called bombshell is not really about what is happening now. It is about what is coming next, because when a legend stops criticizing chaos and starts defending it, it usually means the chaos is not temporary. It is transformation. And once you accept that this is not a temporary surge, but a structural sport itself, The attention surrounding her is no longer surprising when you examine it through that lens, and the reactions from top players begin to make far more sense, especially when those reactions consistently lean toward encouragement, protection, and genuine excitement rather than skepticism or distance. What stands out most is how naturally this support has formed, because in a sport as individually driven as tennis, where players are conditioned to focus inward and protect their competitive edges, widespread admiration for a rising player is rarely this unified or this vocal.
What did you make of her run in Miami and her as a player?
Yeah, I thought it was really fascinating. She uses her leftiness really well. When she went on that run, it was really impressive how she handled the big moments on the stadium court. What's interesting about her draw in Madrid is if she beats Tomova, who does she play second round? It would be Swiatek, who has that bye. So I love this in women's tennis right now, where you get like a compelling matchup maybe a month after the first one.
Yet with Eala, there is a noticeable shift in tone, as if the locker room collectively understands that her success is not coming at the expense of others, but instead contributing to something that benefits the entire ecosystem of the sport. Players who have spent years navigating the pressures of global attention seem to recognize the weight she is carrying, and rather than leaving her to manage it alone, they are stepping in with public support that feels both strategic and sincere. This is where Novak Djokovic spun, as mismanagement or inconvenience is instead understood as evidence of her significance. When he speaks about overcrowding as a positive signal, he is indirectly shielding her from criticism, redirecting attention away from logistical failures and toward the underlying reason those failures are happening in the first place. That kind of intervention carries enormous weight, particularly when it comes from a player whose voice shapes conversations at the highest level of the sport.
I mean, I would like to start with giving the credit to Alex. I mean, what the hell she played in the first set. Yeah, I mean, she was smashing the ball and she was cleaning the lines and all that, so wow, it's a next generation coming that she's gonna come up and she's gonna be really good in a couple of years, so first of all, big credit to her.
Djokovic has built a reputation for speaking candidly about issues that affect players, and his willingness to step in and contextualize Eala's situation sends a clear message to both fans and organizers that she is not just another emerging name, but a figure who demands serious consideration in how the sport prepares for its future. It is one thing for fans to create momentum, but it is something entirely different when a 24-time underrepresented in tennis. The journey is not only about winning matches, but also about carrying expectations that extend far beyond the court, and that is something many professionals recognize, even if their own paths looked different. The emotional and cultural weight attached to Eala's rise is visible in every packed crowd and every delayed entry line. And it is precisely this weight that transforms her matches into events that feel larger than their official round or ranking significance. This collective awareness among players is also reflected in the way they speak about the broader evolution of tennis, because the sport is no longer confined to its traditional strongholds, and the emergence of new markets is reshaping what success looks like in real time.
Okay, we're going to let you get off court, but real quick, caught off guard, to say the least. She was going for broke, had nothing to lose. She pushed you to the limits tonight, but you pulled it off. And how were you able? First of all, what do you think about her game? I mean, look at her future.
Yeah, I mean, she's really good tennis player. Goes for her shots, takes the ball early, rips. Being a lefty is always tricky, competes really well. I mean, obviously she's beaten a lot of top players this week. I don't really think she needs me to tell her that she's a great player, that we're not going to see enough of her, but we definitely are. And she proved that tonight. I mean, that was really...
The Australian Open, which has long positioned itself as the most accessible and globally inclusive Grand Slam, is now experiencing the full consequences of that identity, as previously untapped fan bases begin to show up in overwhelming numbers. In that sense, the chaos surrounding Eala is not an anomaly, but rather a preview of what the sport will increasingly need to accommodate as its reach continues to expand. What makes Djokovic's perspective particularly compelling? is his ability to connect these developments without framing them as problems that need to be solved immediately. Instead, as this story continues to unfold, it becomes clear that the relationship between players like Djokovic and emerging stars like Eala is evolving into something more collaborative than hierarchical. The traditional gap between established champions and rising talents is being softened by a shared recognition of what the sport needs to thrive, and that recognition is creating moments of support that feel unusually unified for a competitive environment. Rather than guarding their positions or downplaying new challengers, top players are choosing to highlight and elevate them, and in doing so, they are actively shaping the narrative of the next generation.
But I also like how tennis, the last couple of decades, you get countries that wouldn't even be mentioned as a tennis country. You can hardly even remember a player from the Philippines, and then you all of a sudden get this talent. I like the story, the connection with Rafa Nadal and his academy. She's a lefty. A couple of times when she produced some forehands, I'm like, whew.
Yeah.
I see, it's tough to compare anybody's forehand to Nadal, but she's a great story.
She's a great story. I don't think that she'll probably have quite as many.
This dynamic introduces a new layer of intrigue because it raises questions about how quickly the rest of the tennis world can adapt to the changes that players themselves are already acknowledging. Tournament organizers, broadcasters, and governing bodies are now faced with the challenge of matching the pace of this evolution, ensuring that infrastructure, scheduling, and fan management systems are capable of handling the kind of demand that players like Eala are generating. Ultimately, what began as a moment of unexpected crowd congestion has developed into a much deeper conversation about the future of tennis and the role that new voices will play in shaping it. Djokovic's respect for Alex Eala is not just a reflection of her current trajectory, but also an acknowledgement of the direction in which the sport is heading, and his willingness to defend